Did you know your body has a built-in defense system working every second to protect you from illness? But here's the thing, most people could make this system many times stronger just by changing a few simple habits. Today, I'm sharing 5 science-backed secrets that won't just boost your immunity, but will keep you healthier and more energized all year long. This isn't folklore or internet hype, this is real wisdom backed by medical science. Fart into equality. When we talk about immune health, one of the most overlooked yet profoundly impactful tools we have is something that's available to us every single day: light. Not just any light, but specifically the natural light from the morning sun. Now you might think of sunlight as something that just brightens your day or helps with mood, but in reality it's a direct and powerful biological signal to nearly every cell in your body. From a medical perspective, one of the first things we learn about human physiology is how interconnected our systems are. The immune system doesn't operate in isolation. It's in constant communication with your nervous system, your endocrine system, and even your skin. And sunlight, particularly in the early hours of the day, plays a key role in orchestrating that communication. When your eyes are exposed to natural light in the morning without sunglasses, ideally, and with that light entering directly, it activates specialized cells in the retina called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. These cells don't help you see. Their job is to send a signal straight to a part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which is essentially your body's master clock. That clock governs your circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour cycle that regulates everything from hormone production to body temperature to immune cell activity. Morning light exposure is like pressing the reset button on that clock every day, ensuring it stays in sync with the natural world. And when your circadian rhythm is in sync, your immune system can time its responses more effectively. For example, certain immune cells are more active at specific times of day. If your clock is off, those immune responses might be mistimed, slower, weaker, or in some cases overly aggressive. Beyond timing, there's a direct metabolic benefit. Light in the blue spectrum, which is abundant in the morning, stimulates cortisol production in a healthy, natural way. Cortisol often gets a bad reputation because of its link to stress, but in the right amounts and at the right time, it's essential. That morning cortisol pulse helps mobilize energy, reduces unnecessary inflammation, and prepares the immune system to respond efficiently if needed. This is very different from the chronically elevated cortisol that happens when you're stressed late at night or overworked. It's about a controlled, beneficial surge that aligns with your biology. Now, sunlight also influences vitamin D production, though the morning light is not the most intense for vitamin D synthesis. That usually happens closer to midday when UVB rays are stronger. But here's what's interesting. Regular morning light exposure can improve sleep quality by anchoring your circadian rhythm, and better sleep indirectly enhances vitamin D metabolism and immune regulation. Sleep is one of the most powerful modulators of immunity, and it's intimately connected to light exposure patterns. People who get bright morning light tend to fall asleep more easily at night, spend more time in restorative deep sleep stages, and wake up feeling more refreshed, all of which contribute to a healthier immune response. There's also a fascinating effect on mitochondrial function. These tiny energy factories inside your cells are not just there to fuel your muscles, they also provide energy to immune cells, particularly those on the front lines like natural killer cells and macrophages. Light exposure, even without heat, can influence mitochondrial performance, partly through signaling pathways related to nitric oxide release and improved blood flow. Better mitochondrial efficiency means that immune cells have the energy they need to detect and neutralize threats quickly. In clinical settings, I've seen patients who spend most of their mornings indoors, especially in dim artificial light, struggle with low energy, disrupted sleep, and frequent infections. When we've made a simple intervention, stepping outside for 10 to 20 minutes within an hour of waking, without looking at screens first, the improvements are often striking. Energy levels rise, sleep improves, and over time the frequency of seasonal illnesses decreases. That's not magic, it's physiology being allowed to operate the way it was designed. Another aspect we don't often discuss is mood. Morning light boosts serotonin production in the brain, and serotonin is a precursor to melatonin, the hormone that helps you fall asleep at night. Serotonin itself supports motivation and emotional stability, which reduces chronic stress. Lower stress levels translate into a less suppressed immune system. It's all connected. Light influences mood, mood influences stress, and stress influences immunity. This is why I often tell people that morning light exposure is not optional if you want optimal health. It's as fundamental as nutrition and movement. It's free, it's safe when done correctly, and it works with your body's built-in systems rather than against them. Of course, there are considerations if you live in a place with very little morning sunlight during certain seasons. You might use a high-quality light therapy lamp that mimics the spectrum of natural morning light. It's not a perfect replacement, but it can help maintain circadian alignment when the sun isn't available. The key is consistency. One morning of sunlight won't transform your immune system, but making it a daily habit like brushing your teeth or drinking water creates a stable foundation that every other health strategy can build upon. Morning light is not just about seeing the sun, it's about giving your body the signal it's been waiting for all night. It's time to wake up, mobilize, and defend. That's a message your immune system knows exactly how to respond to. Vitamin D is often talked about as a nutrient, something you get from food or supplements, but in reality it acts more like a hormone in the body, one that is deeply intertwined with the function of your immune system. What makes it so unique is that nearly every cell in your body has a receptor for it, including the immune cells that are constantly scanning for and neutralizing pathogens. When vitamin D levels are optimal, it's like having a well-trained, well-supplied defense force ready to respond precisely when needed. When those levels are low, the defense becomes slower, less coordinated, and sometimes overreactive in ways that cause more harm than good. One of the fascinating things about vitamin D is how the body makes it. Your skin contains a cholesterol-like molecule that, when exposed to ultraviolet B rays from sunlight, is converted into a vitamin D precursor. This precursor then goes through a couple of processing steps, first in the liver, then in the kidneys, before it becomes the active form calcitriol. This active form is what actually enters your cells and binds to the vitamin D receptor, influencing the expression of hundreds of genes. Among these are genes that regulate the production of antimicrobial peptides, tiny proteins that act like natural antibiotics, puncturing the membranes of bacteria and neutralizing viruses before they can spread. This is one of the ways vitamin D helps your immune system deal with threats before they escalate into full-blown illness. The link between vitamin D and respiratory infections has been studied for years, and the results are consistent. Individuals with adequate vitamin D levels tend to have lower rates of colds, flu, and other respiratory illnesses. This isn't surprising when you think about the mucosal surfaces in your respiratory tract being your first line of defense. Those surfaces are patrolled by immune cells that rely on vitamin D signaling to know when to ramp up and when to stand down. Without enough vitamin D, those signals become unclear. Now, here's where lifestyle plays a huge role. In our modern world, many people spend most of their time indoors. When they do go outside, they often wear clothing that covers much of their skin or use sunscreen, which, while important for skin cancer prevention, also blocks most of the UVB rays needed to produce vitamin D. Combine that with higher latitudes where the sun's angle in the winter doesn't provide sufficient UVB, and it's not hard to see why vitamin D deficiency is so widespread. It's estimated that a significant portion of the global population has suboptimal levels, even in sunny climates, simply because the habits we've developed keep us from making enough naturally. Dietary sources exist: fatty fish like salmon or mackerel, egg yolks, and fortified foods like milk and cereals, but they're often not enough to raise levels significantly, especially if you start from a deficit. That's where testing becomes critical. The only way to know your vitamin D status is through a blood test measuring 25-hydroxyvitamin D. Ideally, you want that number in a range that supports both bone and immune health, which many experts place somewhere between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter, though exact targets can vary based on individual factors. If your levels are low, supplementation can be very effective, but it's important to do it in a measured way. Vitamin D is fat-soluble, meaning it's stored in the body, so taking excessive doses over long periods can lead to toxicity, though that's rare. Still, the safest approach is to start with a moderate dose, recheck your levels after a few months, and adjust accordingly. Some people find they can maintain healthy levels with just a daily dose, while others may need seasonal adjustments, taking more in the winter and less in the summer when sun exposure is higher. One of the subtle but important effects of adequate vitamin D is its role in modulating, not just boosting, the immune system. We often think of boosting immunity as a good thing, but an overactive immune system can be just as dangerous as an underactive one, leading to chronic inflammation and autoimmune issues. Vitamin D helps bring balance. It encourages the immune system to respond strongly when facing a genuine threat, but to quiet down once the job is done. This balance reduces unnecessary wear and tear on your tissues and lowers the risk of chronic inflammatory conditions. There's also an interesting relationship between vitamin D and mood, which indirectly affects immunity. People with low vitamin D often experience fatigue, low mood, or even seasonal affective disorder during the winter months. Poor mood and low energy can make it harder to maintain other healthy habits like exercise, good nutrition, and quality sleep, all of which further impact immune function. By supporting mood stability, vitamin D indirectly supports the overall health ecosystem in your body. From a clinical perspective, when I see patients with frequent infections, prolonged recovery times, or chronic inflammatory issues, vitamin D is one of the first markers I check. Optimizing it doesn't always solve everything, but it's remarkable how often patients notice improved resilience, better energy, and fewer sick days once their levels are in a healthy range. And because it influences so many systems, the benefits often extend far beyond immunity to bone strength, cardiovascular health, and even metabolic function. What makes vitamin D such a powerful part of the conversation is its simplicity. We're not talking about a complex, expensive intervention, just a nutrient your body is designed to make when it gets the right environmental cue, sunlight. Supporting that natural process, and filling in the gaps with diet or supplements when needed, is one of the most straightforward and evidence-backed ways to keep your immune defenses both strong and balanced. Sleep and hydration are two of the most underappreciated yet profoundly important elements of immune health. They work together in ways that most people don't realize, forming a kind of inner cleansing system that keeps your defenses sharp, your inflammation under control, and your energy consistent. The human body is incredibly efficient at repairing itself and flushing out waste, but it can only do so effectively when you give it both the time and the resources it needs. Time coming in the form of quality sleep, and resources in the form of adequate water. When you fall asleep, your body doesn't simply turn off. In fact, certain systems become even more active. One of the most fascinating discoveries in neuroscience in recent years is the glymphatic system. This is a network in the brain that functions like a cleaning crew, flushing out metabolic waste products, things like beta amyloid proteins that accumulate during the day. The glymphatic system works best when you're in deep, restorative sleep, particularly during the non-REM stages. These stages allow your brain cells to shrink slightly, creating more space between them so cerebrospinal fluid can wash through and carry away waste. If you cut your sleep short, or if the quality of that sleep is poor, this cleanup process is incomplete, and over time that buildup can affect not just brain health but also immune regulation. Sleep also directly influences immune cell behavior. Certain white blood cells, like T cells, are more active during sleep, and their ability to recognize and attach to pathogens is enhanced during the night. Research has shown that when people are sleep deprived, T cells don't adhere to infected cells as effectively, making it harder to clear infections. At the same time, sleep helps regulate cytokine production. Cytokines are signaling molecules that tell your immune system when to ramp up inflammation and when to bring it back down. Without enough rest, the body tends to produce more pro-inflammatory cytokines, which may leave you feeling achy, fatigued, and more susceptible to illness. Now, hydration ties into this picture more closely than most people think. Water is the medium in which virtually all biochemical processes in your body take place, including those of the immune system. Your blood, which carries immune cells to sites of infection or injury, is about half water. Your lymphatic fluid, the transport system for immune surveillance, is also water-rich. Without proper hydration, circulation slows, lymph flow becomes sluggish, and the delivery of immune cells is delayed. This is like trying to run an emergency response team with half the roads blocked. You might get there eventually, but not as quickly or efficiently as you need to. Hydration also supports detoxification at a more physical level. Your kidneys rely on adequate water to filter waste from the blood. Your skin uses sweat to excrete certain toxins, and your digestive tract needs fluid to keep everything moving and prevent the reabsorption of waste. When you're dehydrated, these systems operate under strain, and the backlog of waste products can subtly tax the immune system over time. The connection is so strong that even mild dehydration, just a 1–2% drop in body water, can impair cognitive function, reduce physical performance, and trigger a stress response that indirectly suppresses immunity. It's not just about the amount of water you drink, but also the timing. Starting your day with water helps replenish fluids lost overnight and kickstarts metabolic processes. Spacing your intake throughout the day supports steady circulation and lymph movement. whereas gulping large amounts at once is less efficient and may even dilute electrolytes. Quality of water matters too. Clean, mineral-rich water supports the balance of electrolytes needed for proper cell signaling, including immune cell communication. Interestingly, hydration can also influence sleep, and in turn, sleep can influence hydration. If you're even slightly dehydrated, you may find it harder to fall asleep or stay asleep, partly because your body is subtly stressed and partly because dehydration can cause a rise in your core temperature. On the other hand, poor sleep can disrupt hormones like vasopressin, which regulates water balance, leading to greater fluid loss. This creates a feedback loop. Poor hydration worsens sleep, and poor sleep worsens hydration, with immunity caught in the middle. From a clinical standpoint, I've seen patients who struggle with recurring infections, brain fog, or chronic fatigue, and sometimes the most impactful change comes from getting consistent, restorative sleep and meeting daily water needs. These are simple interventions, yet they recalibrate the body's natural rhythms. When you sleep well, your immune cells have the time and energy to repair, learn, and adapt. When you're well hydrated, those cells can move quickly to where they're needed, communicate effectively, and carry out their work in a cleaner, less inflammatory environment. What's striking is how quickly people can notice a difference when both elements are optimized. A week of consistent 7 to 9 hours of high-quality sleep, paired with steady hydration, often results in clearer thinking, more stable energy, better digestion, and fewer aches. Over time, these changes build resilience, not in a superficial way, but by strengthening the very systems that keep you healthy in the first place. Clean air is something most of us take for granted until we don't have it. Every single day, you take around 20,000 breaths, drawing in oxygen to fuel every cell in your body. But with that oxygen comes whatever else is floating in the air: dust, pollen, pollutants, mold spores, and even microscopic pathogens. Your respiratory system is beautifully designed to filter, trap, and neutralize these intruders. But like any defense system, it works best when the incoming burden is low and the environment supports its natural cleaning mechanisms. When the air is clean, your lungs aren't forced into a constant state of low-grade battle, and your immune system can focus on other important tasks instead of fighting off what you inhale. The upper airways, the nose, sinuses, and throat, are your first line of defense. The nose is equipped with tiny hairs called cilia and a layer of mucus that act like a conveyor belt, trapping particles and moving them away from the lungs. This mucociliary clearance system is highly effective, but it's also sensitive. Exposure to polluted air, cigarette smoke, or even very dry air can impair cilia function, slow down mucus movement, and leave particles lingering in the airways longer than they should. Over time, that can lead to irritation, inflammation, and an increased risk of infection. Your lungs themselves have their own immune patrol. Specialized cells like macrophages live deep in the air sacs, ready to engulf and digest harmful particles or microbes that make it past the upper defenses. But these cells, too, can become overwhelmed or less efficient when they're constantly bombarded with pollutants. Fine particulate matter, especially from vehicle exhaust, industrial emissions, or wildfire smoke, can penetrate deep into the lungs, slip into the bloodstream, and trigger inflammation not just in the respiratory system but throughout the body. Chronic low-level inflammation of this kind is linked to a higher risk of respiratory illnesses, cardiovascular problems, and weakened immune resilience. The irony is that indoor air can sometimes be worse than outdoor air. Modern homes and offices are designed to be energy efficient, which often means they are tightly sealed. Without good ventilation, indoor spaces can accumulate pollutants from cooking fumes, cleaning products, building materials, or even from the occupants themselves in the form of carbon dioxide and biological particles. Add in allergens like dust mites or pet dander, and you have a mixture that can stress the immune system over time. Many people live or work in spaces where the air is slowly wearing down their defenses without them even realizing it. The good news is that there are practical steps you can take to improve the air you breathe. Increasing ventilation by opening windows when outdoor air quality is good, or by using mechanical systems with high-quality filters dilutes indoor pollutants. HEPA filters can trap fine particles, while activated carbon filters can remove certain gases and odors. For people in areas with frequent smoke or high pollution days, portable air purifiers in the bedroom can make a noticeable difference, especially since that's where you spend a large block of uninterrupted time breathing. Humidity also plays a role. Air that's too dry can dry out your mucous membranes, making them less effective at trapping and moving particles. Air that's too humid can encourage mold growth, which can release spores that challenge your immune system. Keeping indoor humidity in a moderate range, about 40 to 50%, helps maintain the integrity of your respiratory defenses. Nature itself can be a powerful air purifier. Spending time in green spaces not only exposes you to cleaner, oxygen-rich air but also to compounds released by plants called phytoncides that have been shown to support immune function. There's something profoundly restorative about breathing deeply in a forest or near the ocean, where the air is fresh and charged with negative ions that may help reduce stress and improve mood, indirectly supporting immunity. On the other end of the spectrum, awareness of poor air quality is just as important. Air quality indexes are easy to check online or through weather apps, and on days when the index shows high levels of pollution, it's wise to limit strenuous outdoor activity and keep windows closed. This is not about fear, it's about strategy. Your immune system has a finite capacity, and reducing unnecessary exposure allows it to operate more efficiently where it's truly needed. From a physiological standpoint, breathing clean air doesn't just reduce the workload on your immune system, it improves oxygen delivery to your tissues. Oxygen is the fuel for your mitochondria, the energy-producing engines in your cells. When your cells are well oxygenated and free from the oxidative stress caused by pollutants, they function more efficiently, repair themselves more effectively, and signal more clearly to other systems in the body. That's why people often report better energy, sharper focus, and even improved sleep quality after spending time in cleaner air environments. Over the years, I've seen patients with chronic respiratory symptoms, cough, congestion, frequent infections improve dramatically simply by addressing air quality in their homes and workspaces. These aren't always high-tech interventions. Sometimes it's as simple as reducing indoor pollutants, adding a HEPA filter, and making a habit of spending time outdoors in cleaner air environments. It's remarkable how something so basic, something we do 20,000 times a day without thinking, can either be quietly undermining our health or quietly fortifying it, depending on the quality of what we breathe. Stress is one of the most powerful forces acting on your immune system, and its effects can go in two completely opposite directions depending on how it's managed. In short bursts, stress can be protective. Imagine you're suddenly faced with a threat. Your heart rate goes up, your breathing quickens, your muscles are ready to respond. This acute stress response, driven by hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, actually enhances certain immune functions temporarily. Your body is primed to deal with injury or infection if it occurs. But when that stress becomes chronic, when the on switch is never flipped back to off, those same hormones that once offered short-term protection can begin to suppress immune activity, increase inflammation, and wear down your resilience over time. Cortisol is a fascinating hormone in this regard. In the right amounts, it helps regulate inflammation and keeps your immune system from overreacting. But with constant stress, cortisol levels can stay elevated or, paradoxically, become depleted after prolonged overuse of the stress response. In both scenarios, immune function is compromised. Elevated cortisol can suppress the production of lymphocytes, your immune system's white blood cell soldiers, while also weakening the signaling pathways that help these cells coordinate their attack on pathogens. It's a bit like having an army that's either understaffed or unable to communicate effectively. Chronic stress also affects the balance of different immune responses. The immune system has two main arms, one that deals with immediate threats like bacteria and viruses, and another that handles longer-term defense, such as producing antibodies. Under prolonged stress, the immediate response arm becomes less efficient, leaving you more vulnerable to infections. At the same time, the longer-term antibody response can also be dampened, meaning you recover more slowly and may even respond less effectively to vaccines. The link between stress and inflammation is another critical piece of the puzzle. While short-term inflammation is part of a healthy immune response, chronic stress can lead to persistent low-grade inflammation that damages tissues and disrupts normal function. This ongoing inflammation is associated with everything from cardiovascular disease to autoimmune conditions, and it diverts the immune system's resources away from where they're most needed. Now, here's the empowering part. While you can't eliminate all stress, and you wouldn't want to because some stress is beneficial, you can train your body and mind to recover more quickly from it. This is where stress control becomes a skill, not just a reaction. One of the most effective ways to do this is through deliberate, controlled breathing. Slow, deep breaths stimulate the vagus nerve, which activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's built-in rest and repair mode. This counterbalances the fight-or-flight response, lowers heart rate and blood pressure, and signals to your immune system that it's safe to operate in a balanced, efficient way. Regular physical activity is another potent stress modulator. Exercise triggers the release of endorphins, which improve mood and reduce perception of stress. It also helps regulate cortisol levels and improve sleep quality, two factors that directly strengthen immunity. The key is moderation. Intense, prolonged exercise, without adequate recovery, can actually increase stress and suppress immune function, while consistent moderate activity like brisk walking, cycling, or resistance training provides the sweet spot for both mental and physical health. Mindset plays a surprisingly large role as well. How you interpret a stressor, whether you see it as a threat or as a challenge, can influence the biological response your body produces. Studies have shown that people who perceive stress as manageable tend to have lower cortisol spikes and a quicker return to baseline. Practices like mindfulness meditation, gratitude journaling, and even spending time in nature can shift perception in this direction. These aren't just mental tricks, they cause measurable changes in brain activity and hormonal output that directly impact immune performance. Social connection is another layer of protection. Humans are wired for interaction, and meaningful relationships act as a buffer against stress. Supportive conversations, shared laughter, and simply feeling understood can reduce stress hormone levels and strengthen immune resilience. Conversely, loneliness has been shown to increase inflammation and weaken immune responses, even in otherwise healthy individuals. This means that reaching out to a friend or loved one when you're feeling stressed is not just emotionally helpful, it's biologically therapeutic. From a medical perspective, I've seen patients who made significant gains in their overall health, not through a new medication or supplement, but by mastering stress control techniques. Their infections became less frequent, their recovery time shortened, and their energy became more consistent. What's happening under the surface is that their immune system is no longer stuck in a constant state of alert. Instead, it's able to shift fluidly between readiness and repair, which is exactly how it was designed to function. The takeaway here is not that stress is the enemy, but that unmanaged stress is. Your body is equipped with remarkable tools to handle challenges, but those tools work best when they're given the chance to reset and recharge. When you learn to activate your parasympathetic system, maintain perspective, nurture relationships, and care for your body through movement and rest, you create an environment where your immune system can thrive, not by working harder, but by working smarter. If you add these 5 simple but powerful actions into your daily life: morning sunlight, balanced vitamin D, deep sleep and hydration, clean air, and stress control, you can build an almost unbreakable immune system. Just a few minutes a day can give you years of better health. Remember, your health is in your hands. Start these habits today and make your health your greatest wealth. With that, if you want me to create separate deep dive videos on each of these strategies, drop a comment, because on this journey to health, I'm right here with you. Thanks for watching. If this resonated, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next deep dive.